Hello, welcome, good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are joining us today on our second episode of S1 Tom Chat. With me today, I have my good friend, my learned colleague, Mr. Jim Shields. Jim, welcome.
Thank you. Hello, and nice to see you again, Tom, and thanks for having me on the show. It's awesome.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Now, Jim, many of you may know his work, less so him, although he'd like to think it was the other way round. But Jim's the creative director at Know Before, but also you are the founder of Twist and Shout, a creative production company, a video production company.
Yeah, that's right. That's wow. Giving away my age now. That company was 28 years old in January.
Wow. Or would have been.
Wow.
If it hadn't, or would have been in January if it hadn't been absorbed by the board.
Well, it's still running as an entity. It's a wholly owned subsidiary of Know Before now.
Ah, there you go.
So the name has been retained because apparently there is some brand value there. So, which after 28 years, if there isn't, you've not really done very well, have you? Really?
and they're going to squeeze every last dollar, right? Let's face it.
Let's face it. I fully expect them to. Yeah.
But I think what Twist and Shout did, and obviously what you did as a result, was you built a reputation making really quite pioneering information security shows, for want of a better term.
Yeah.
The sort of infosec sitcom, I think you like to call it, of restricted intelligence, which you're now filming the 7th series.
Yeah, we've just wrapped on season 7 of Restricted Intelligence. The final season is very sad.
Oh, it's going to be the final one.
Yeah. Well, that was season 6 was supposed to be the final one.
Well, that's true.
But because of the acquisition, our esteemed boss, Stu Showerman, said that he would like to see, under the auspices of Know Before, another season of Restricted. A, because it's so popular, but B, because he doesn't want to make it look like, because of the acquisition, we're not doing that anymore. You know,
he doesn't want to be the bad guy.
Yeah, no, exactly.
That's right.
I completely understand that. And actually, to be fair, it didn't take much persuasion, to be honest.
No, and I'm sure getting the actors back in as well, because I know having been on set with them as well, and yourself, it's like everybody knows each other so well. It really is. You know, those core characters. They're like a mini family. Well, just like a sitcom, right?
Exactly right. In fact, the whole point of going where we did with Restricted Intelligence was because, and this is a massive spoiler alert, and possibly people will be dropping teacups on the floor all the world over when they hear this, is that I'm not a security person. I'm not.
No.
I'm from a background in theatre and television and filmmaking, and I got into security through a very good friend, a mutual friend called Stephen Bonner, who commissioned us to get the attention.
Stephen Bonner.
Yeah, he commissioned us to make a film that would get the attention of the entire workforce of Barclays Bank. So.
I was going to say that was at Barclays Bank, and that was the chase scene, wasn't it? When somebody has their BlackBerry stolen. I mean, and that dates it.
Well, that was one of 6 scenes.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it was one of the scenes.
Yeah.
It was one of the scenes. That story was based on. It's a very clever format, actually, because it was essentially one film with 6 little dream sequences in it. And the story of that film, I stand by this film to this day because it's one of my favourite pieces of work and one of the ones I'm most proud of. Barclays used to shut their branches on a Wednesday morning for the first hour. You may remember this. That you couldn't get in the bank because they're doing training. And so they needed something that they could all get in one quick hit.
Yeah.
So we took the 6 top issues and we made a little dream sequence about each one. But they said, we want to watch it as one film. So we glued it together with some improvised comedy. And the story was that a middle manager in Barclays had to get the attention of his staff, and he'd got a PowerPoint presentation he was very proud of. And then he got a director who he knew who was going to come in and shoot the video, and it was all going to be very corporate and very straightforward and very within brand. And it was all, this guy was very risk averse, this manager.
Yeah.
And the story goes that the day before, the director calls in sick, and they have to get a locum. They have to get somebody to step in for him. And this lunatic turns up who's a theatre lovey, and he's like, "Darling, we'll make a movie," and he's all of this. And of course, this guy's terrified.
Yeah.
And so there goes his budget and possibly his career, and that was the story. And I love it to this day. And so the dream sequences are from the mind of this lunatic, where we've got a sort of Bridget Jones type of film. We've got a Bourne Ultimatum type of film, which is The Running Man you mentioned. We even went with French avant-garde, which was my favourite. It's hilarious.
I've only ever seen The Running Man.
So I'm proud of that to this day.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll have to ask.
Well, I should show you the avant-garde one.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know whether there's copyright involved.
Stephen was really... well, Twist and Shout don't own it per se, but I'm sure you could see it.
Yeah.
So the idea... on the French one, for example, the very last title on the French dream sequence is a picture of a fish on a plate in black and white, and it just says fin.
Yeah. Do you know what? I finished one of my presentations years ago in a very similar way. It was a shark's fin, and it just came up. So
the French auteur in all of it.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I think you make it's almost quite meta in the fact that this director is terrified of this creative approach to education. But that's art imitating life, or life imitating art, whichever way around it is, right?
Absolutely.
Because I think I think you told me this, and whether or not you remember or not, but security isn't funny, but it can be fun. And I think either you told me or I dreamt it or whatever. It doesn't matter. But I think it's very true.
No, I think I did mention that because one thing, I think what used to happen, we did get resistance. People look at restricted intelligence now and think, wow, great, 7 seasons. Of course, it's a great idea. Why would it ever not be?
Yeah.
Well, when we started, a lot of people thought it was not a good idea. And we had a lot of pushback.
Had to fight tooth and nail for it.
Yeah, we had a lot of people saying, well, if people don't take it seriously, then that exposes us to a risk. So if you make fun of information security, then other people will take it lightly. And that was proved to be completely wrong, because if you don't have people's attention, it kind of doesn't matter what you say about information security, because it's not getting through anyway. If you're just going to throw compliance and legislation and ticking a box at somebody as an employee, they're not engaged with it, and therefore you might as well give up, really, because it's just not going to stick. If you make somebody laugh and you have that contract with them that says, if you give me 3 minutes of your attention, I will entertain you and thank you for that, then that's a relationship, and they engage with that material completely differently than they do if they're sort of on a training session. And in truth, you need both, but the comedy gave context to why the training was necessary. And it's all about context. I think it's really important.
Absolutely, because I think you could actually have all the best, I don't want to say material, but the best content in the sense of what you shouldn't do, blah blah blah, all that sort of thing. You deliver it in a bad way. Yeah. Great content poorly delivered is no content at all. Because your content has to be remembered, it has to be retained. And I think that's where humour comes in. Is it creates that visceral response. It creates a chemical change in the brain that actually helps in the remembering of things. That's why people like to retell jokes. That's why people like to, they actually remember their favourite jokes, etc. You can never remember your favourite joke when you put on the spot, unfortunately. But but people remember them.
It's very powerful. I can tell you a joke I was told 25 years ago, because it made me snort coffee down my nose at the time. It was a visceral reaction, You can't...
That's right.
People say, make me laugh. I can't ever make anybody laugh. I can create the conditions in which you find something hilarious and you laugh. Yeah. But that's very different to making somebody laugh, and I think that's the key.
But that's an interesting point, though, isn't it? In that I know when I was looking to take on restricted intelligence, one of the biggest pushbacks was, well, we're a global company and humour is different, in different countries. And to a certain extent, that may be true. I mean, Monty Python, for instance, is successful in some countries and not others. But although that's quite an extreme, but there is a universality of it as well, though, isn't there?
Yeah, well, here's the thing about there's a lot of points in there actually. One thing about the international question is something we got asked. It was the first question we got asked by corporates.
Yeah.
And we developed a formula because what we did was we did some research. We looked at other shows that had done well internationally, and Friends was a good example. I mean, obviously now it's pilloried for being a dinosaur of values, but actually.
Yeah.
But at the time, in its peak, it was being rolled out to like 130 countries. It was a paragon of internationality,
Yeah.
which for an American show is saying something. And so what we studied about it was that it was relationships, it was sometimes hierarchy, characters, clearly defined characters, and fairly simple scenarios that did not rely on clever language. And so there were no verbal puns, for want of a better phrase, that we try to avoid those. So we came up with a set of rules that said what sells internationally. I mean, the biggest selling international show, when I tell you, it'll be obvious, is Mr. Bean.
Right, yeah. There's no language in it.
Mr. Bean doesn't have any dialogue.
No, that's right. Yeah.
There's no language. There's just a character in a situation with a hierarchy. He's the idiot. The parking attendant is the overlord. Those are the things that people recognise universally. The other thing to bear in mind is companies buy a product with the expectation that it's going to work 100% of the time with 100% of the people.
Yeah.
And that's ridiculous in any communication, let alone a sitcom. So I used to say to them, you have to look at this holistically. At best you'll get maybe 80, 90%. That'd be great. But at worst, you'll create a tribe of really vocal ambassadors within the company who love the series. That's what you'll get. Now, you might get one person in a country somewhere who goes, well, I don't think that's funny. I don't think it's appropriate. That's fine. But it's not worth throwing the baby out with the bathwater, because you've got a group of people who are saying, "Oh, can I have the music as a ringtone?"
Yeah, that's right.
Well, that's fan behaviour. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, and the fact is that one person in that one country didn't like it. That's still a better hit rate than if you were just putting them in a room and shouting PowerPoints at them.
Yeah,
but because it's such a vocal response, people expect to have PowerPoint shouted at them.
Yeah,
they don't expect to have high quality, high production values, humorous show put in front of them. And what, do you expect me to learn from this?
Yeah. Well, that's the relationship with the content is really important. I'm very happy to say that our new owners, Know4, have recently managed to put the first season of our drama. Now, I was going to say comedy drama, but actually it turned into more of a drama. Onto Amazon Prime, which is a big announcement, actually.
I saw that. That's brilliant.
Yeah, and it's fascinating. And they've left the bullet points in, the public service announcements, every 8 minutes. You'll get the recap.
Oh, really?
Every 8 minutes. Because even though it's edited as a movie, but it's still got the bullet points in it. So you learn, so you still get the learning, with hopefully 100% of the fun,
Oh, that's excellent.
But that's testament to and also it's won a few awards and what have you. So we're very, very proud of it.
Yeah.
And I honestly think it is the best content in the world at the moment for engaging employees on information security. I really do.
Well, I think it's
obviously I'm biased.
Obviously, I can't imagine why, but I think certainly if lockdown has taught us anything, that the creative arts are vital to industry and our mental health and well-being, right? And I think having this kind of content go more mainstream can only be a good thing. I mean, small independent films, there's some dross out there, but there's, and I'm not saying that this is a small independent film, but something that would not make the mainstream by its very nature and what it's targeted at. But having it on a mainstream platform actually means that, if there's 100 people around the world that go, I need to change my behaviour.
There you go.
You've moved the needle.
You've averted a tragedy. Yeah.
Yeah, potentially. Absolutely. And I was going to say in my intro that most of your stuff is award-winning, right? Let's face it.
Thank you. Yeah, we've been very, the media have been very kind.
I mean, I know you go to the opening of an envelope, let alone an award.
Of course I would, yeah. But, anything for a free Prosecco, I'm fine with
that. Exactly.
But
sorry, you were going to say something else.
I was going to talk about the relationship with the content, but also the relationship with information security inside a business. I mean, you've lived that role. Sometimes you are the department that likes to say no.
Used to be.
And therefore about as popular as something smelly in a spacesuit, So we've gone from a situation where nobody knew what the information security department did or where it was or who was in it, to somebody chasing the information security awareness person down the corridor to find out when's the next episode of The Inside Man or Restricted Intelligence. When's it coming out?
Exactly, and that happened to me. I was in our India office in Delhi, and one of the VPs saw me at the water cooler and came barreling towards me saying, "I love it. When's the next episode? Can I get it now?" And I was taken aback. Like, really? I mean, I know it's good, but it's approached me in a quite scary manner. Good,
You're looking for the cameras at this point, aren't you?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, precisely.
Yeah. Is this being
precisely? Filmed? But I want to come back, back a few stages to when you mentioned that the first work you did was in infosec was for Barclays. Would you say that was your seminal moment of this? Infosec is the industry I want to be in, or was it something else? Was it something else that said, I've got a contribution to make to information security?
It was a perfect storm in a way. We'd always said that because we'd recently specialised in comedy and business, and that was all business, not just information security. And so we'd realised that there weren't many specialists in that area. And we'd had a consultant working with us, a lovely man called Peter Wrigglesworth, who had coached us through a difficult patch in 2008. And, and he'd said, you're airing towards comedy. You know a lot about it. There aren't many people out there who would call themselves specialists. That is a good way to survive. And then in the same year, we had 2 projects covering information security. And there'd been a couple of documentaries on the TV where somebody had found a load of bank statements in the back of a dumpster out behind the branch or something. There was some sort of expose had been on TV. You may remember that. And so it was in the public. It was starting to emerge as a thing. And so in the same year, we were approached by Barclays and by one of our biggest customers at the time, Alcatel-Lucent, a global telecoms infrastructure company. And Alcatel came to us and said, nobody's taking any notice of the cybersecurity issues in the company. We had a 200-page, very clearly written document, and nobody's read it. And we've even reduced it to 10 pages, and they've still not read it. We don't know what we can do. You work for us as a filmmaker. What would you suggest? And we came up, not many people know this particular product, with a series called Adam and Jeff. And it's 2 blokes in the office, just banter. And, one guy forgets to log off. The next thing, the guy next to him sends the email in his drafts folder that was never meant to be sent, or sends his holiday pictures to every printer in the building or whatever. And it's just blokes messing around with each other, but it highlighted the information security issues. And then shortly, about the same time as that, we were approached by Stephen Bonner to create The Risk for Barclays. And that was the one that really got everyone's attention because it was higher production values. What was lovely was they recognized it as kind of thought leadership almost, like this is the way it's going to be in the future. We'll use all sorts of methods to get employees' attention. And they went on a kind of global roadshow around all the Barclays international head offices with this set of videos.
Yeah.
And what was really brilliant was they put our credit on the end of the PowerPoint, which changed everything, because the following 5 years, the following 3 years, we made about 50 films in information security in 3 years.
Wow.
And that just blew up for us completely. And we have Barclays and Stephen Bonner to thank for that.
Yeah.
And the one thing he did say, the advice he did say, the start of the project, which could be a career-ending move for anybody, he said, if we're going to do this, for goodness sake, make it funny. Because he'd seen some corporate attempts at comedy and it had been lame. And he's like, I do not want to create a real, duck egg of a film. And so he just said, whatever you do, it's got to be funny.
So basically what he said to you was, make me laugh.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. And he's quite a jolly chap, Stephen Bonner. So, he's an very intelligent.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, if you've spent, therefore, the last 15 years educating people on information security about humour, what have you learned about information security?
Oh, wow. Quite a lot, actually. Yeah. Enough to become slightly paranoid, which is a good thing. One thing I have noticed as well is if you talk to any of our lead actors on restricted intelligence, they have become advocates. And they sort of remember some of the speeches that we wrote for them, where they're ranting about how you shouldn't click on a link or you shouldn't pick up that USB key you found in the car park. And our favourite character is Lionel, because he just does everything wrong. He just clicks on the link and he finds a USB key in the car park and thinks, "Woohoo! 32 gigabytes, score!" And he just no idea. And so those actors learnt a lot. I have been privileged now to work with people at KnowBe4 and people like Javad Malik and Perry Carpenter and other people who have asked for content to go into the show, The Inside Man, that is way ahead of being needed today. So I'll give you an example: is artificial intelligence,
right?
Deep fake is another one. The concept of fake news, like trusted sources. We're widening the net a little bit on information security to cover quite futuristic subjects. But because it's in the context of a story, you find the audiences going, "Is that a real thing? Can that happen?" And if they Google it, they'll find that yes, it can. And so it's pretty cool to sort of be laying the groundwork for future lessons in how we're going to protect our information.
So you'd say that you're definitely you're definitely no more than the average person on the street when it comes to information security.
Oh, definitely, yeah. I've done that much research for all the scripts and spoken to so many experts like yourself. It's been brilliant.
Yeah. So as everybody knows, there's show notes that support any kind of show like this. And what you don't know, Jim?
Oh, like you sent me the thing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I now on my show notes have a list of all the films you're going to watch in the next 12 months. I know, right? Yeah, so there's a list here, starts on the 17th of May 2021. This is the shared Google Doc that I shared with you. It finishes 22nd of December 2028 with Avatar 5. And you copied that into the document. So
I know what's that. I know I can explain. I know what's happened.
I'm glad it was just that, is all I'm saying. But that Control C, Control V is
could have been a lot worse.
Yeah.
Obviously, the document was open when I was emailing my friends with the list of forthcoming cinema releases that I got off a website, and I've sent it to all my mates, and I've just been cutting and pasting, wondering why it's not working.
Yeah.
And it's actually been pasted into your document.
Yeah, that's right. But that really shows that you can have all the knowledge in the world, and it's still things will still cock up, right? And that's something we have to.
You've got an open document with the cursor still blinking.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. But I think
shared documents are just one area that are a nightmare, aren't they? All part of the cloud problem.
Oh my goodness, yeah. I'm constantly. Is this the right one? Am I in the right place? Is this the right document? The right folder? Has this got the right permissions?
You just got to take a moment.
Yeah, there's a huge amount to take in, and so to expect the average person to be able to do all this, especially when. Again, we're recording this in April 2021. We've had a year of the pandemic. We still probably got another 6 months to go, or 3 to 6 months to go. That shift, that massive shift last March, in March 2020, into working from home, where you couldn't just email a document or you couldn't just tap somebody on the shoulder. Everything is being done, through the cloud, etc. It's no surprise that a lot of people feel overwhelmed by this.
I can't imagine what it must be like to be the person responsible for securing endpoints and data across an organization when you've gone from perhaps 5 offices to 7,500 offices overnight.
Yeah.
It's kind of
7,500 offices that you have no idea how they've been set up either.
That have got strangers running around in them, or as I like to call them, the kid.
Yeah, the children. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You got dogs, you got delivery people, the whole lot. Absolutely, It's ridiculous. Yeah. It's ridiculous. So last sort of topic here, before we wrap up, but what would you say is the most important thing that a CISO should be doing creatively now? So CISOs know their job, or at least you'd like to think so. Let's take that as a baseline. We know security, we know what to do, etc. But actually, I think as your projects and your films and your series have shown, is that they don't know how to deliver that message, and just because they have the knowledge doesn't mean they have the capability to deliver it. But so, what would you say a CISO needs to do creatively to move that needle, move that dial in the right direction?
Well, there's one big thing I can say, which I've been sort of banging this drum for years. If you think of yourself as a trainer, then you'll get very good at imparting information to people. But if you think of yourself as a marketer, then you'll get really good at persuading people to do something, because that's what marketing's really good at.
Right.
Yeah. So understanding the difference between both of those is really important. So what a marketer will do is think about a creative way of doing it. They worry about language. So write in the way that you write to a friend rather than a corporate statement. Sometimes at work, we feel we have to be official, especially in security. We feel like we have to be clear and official and all of that. And so we adopt a tone that is quite, you must not click on this link, and anyone found contravening these internal policies will be disciplined, and blah, 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 and frankly, a lot of employees will just go shut down.
Yeah.
But if you say, guess what? Funny thing happened on the way to the forum this morning, and you tell them a little story, they're in. We're hardwired to remember stories, and we'll love you for it. So think like a marketer. Think about how you talk to people in email or on any other remote publication and in person. And also, the other thing you can do to help yourself is look outside the industry for inspiration. My recommendation is that if you were really a marketer, you would look at magazines like Campaign or Creative Review, or one that's outside London is called The Drum. There are these magazines that celebrate really clever communications ideas. And if you don't come out with a few ideas after reading one of them, well, I don't know what to do with you. But look at your own skills and feed. I call it feeding the beast. Feed the beast. Consume creative stuff, and you will become more creative.
Yeah.
So that's my advice. And is this a good time to plug the book?
Yeah, go for it. Sorry. Yeah, absolutely. This is like Graham Norton show, isn't it? You've got a book to plug, but Tim, you are also an author, soon to be publishing your second book, and it's based almost exactly on what you've just said, isn't it? Around actually in business, how do we engage and motivate people? But over to you and your book.
Well, 5 years ago, I wrote a book as a love letter to the creative community, people like me who struggle to, if you like, sell our services to corporations and businesses. And that was a successful book. It helped a lot of people. But then I thought I'd write a book for the other side of the coin, which is the people in business who have to engage with the creative community and are perhaps a bit frightened about it, or aren't creatively confident. And so this is for them. It's called Once More with Feeling. And the kind of advice I've just given you about how to, adopt creativity in a controlled manner, to become more confident with it, to look at language, all of that is in this book. It's got practical stuff, but it's also got a bit of comedy in it. I tell a few stories. I've had lots of thankfully successful relationships with clients where they'll be in the book to illustrate a point about encouraging people to take their heart in their hands and just communicate with empathy and with sincerity, rather than in the brand guidelines, if you will. And it's happening more and more. I'm happy to say that the whole business world has helped by social media, if I'm honest, to say you've got to find your voice, you've got to be a human being, and that helps a lot now. But there are still large swathes of the tech sector and business to business that speak as if you're translating the instructions from Japanese on your dishwasher.
Yeah, exactly. And I think bringing that humanity, bringing those stories in, and I do a lot of presentations, online and on stage, etc. You've got to have a story arc. You've got to have something that's going to hook people the beginning, the middle, the end, etc. Because that's how we as human beings have imparted knowledge effectively since we became human beings.
If we didn't want our kids to run into the woods, we would tell them about the goblins and the witches that were going to put them in a pot and eat them, and we'd scare the bejesus out of them, and then they wouldn't do it, And I don't know. There's an evolution.
Scarred for life.
Yeah, isn't that what parenting's all about?
Exactly.
But I think there's an important little bit that I've learned from a fairly well-known storytelling expert called Marcia Shandor, who spends her whole life working with companies and individuals to learn how to tell stories better. And she told me that something happens to the brain when you hear a story. It does something that puts you in the story. It's why we engage with movies and theatre and television so emotionally. We don't know why that function is there, but we suspect it's an evolutionary thing. There is a survival reason for it, but it's almost like having radar. If somebody tells you a story and you're in it, you feel like you're next to the protagonist, or you're rooting for the good guy, or you're terrified of the bad guy, or whatever it might be. There's a reason for that being there, and we don't know what it is yet, but we know the brain lights up in the same way. If you show somebody from a point of view of a car crash while they're in a brain scanner, while they're under an MRI, the moving MRIs that you can do these days, bits of the brain light up with panic and fear and adrenaline and all of that. But actually, if they're actually in that situation, apparently it's the same parts of the brain that light up as if you were really doing it. And that's what storytelling does. It puts you in the story. It's an actual brain function.
Wow.
So that tells us something about how powerful storytelling can be.
Storytelling and humour, all part of the brains of the human being. It's obvious.
Yeah, it's all part of our natural communication.
But it's fascinating at the same time. Brilliant. Excellent, Jim. Thank you so much for your time. We're up against it. Thank you so much for your time and your insight.
You're welcome. Always a pleasure, Tom.
I'm going to put links to your books as well as some of the other things in there into the show notes at the end as well. So make sure you send them to me.
Sure.
Make sure you put them into that document alongside your shopping
I'll send you
list.
I'll send you a few links that we can use.
Yeah, perfect. Nice one.
My shopping list, my measurements for my new suit, all of that.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Jim.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Absolutely. Cheers. And thank you, everybody, for listening and watching. This has been episode 2 of the S1 Tom Chat. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
In the next episode, we have Lorena Fielding in the blue corner and Tom Langford in the red corner. Who will win in a fight between information security and privacy?
I like to think of it as having evolved.
Stay tuned.
We're out.
Cheers, bye. And we're out.